Hi everybody, in this video I want to talk about lists. So lists are a lot of fun to work with, and it allows you to organize information on the screen, and we can do a ton of stuff with how we format these things. So without further ado, let's look at some lists. What I've created is a document called lists.html, and so I'll make sure that I'm referencing the right thing here. And I'm going to add a special style sheet for this one called style.lists. And there's several reasons why I might do this, but for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to blank that out. I'm going to go to save as, and I will make this style-lists. I just want to make it so that we're not terribly confused about how things are happening. So as I'm looking at these documents, I have styles.list, and the file that I'm looking at here is style list, and I'm going to change this to stylists.css and make sure everything syncs up. So I have lists.html here, I have style-lists.css, and I have style-lists.css listed here. To see that my changes are taking place, I'm going to do just a simple body switch, and I'm going to put in some font changes. So I'm going to do a font dash family, and I'm going to go Helvetica, Arial, and sans serif. And I put in at least one property just so I can see everything working and I don't get too confused or carried away. All right. So once I have my list in place, I'm going to show you how to do some styling on these lists. By default, each one of the lists has a different style to it. So let's look at the HTML first to see what we're dealing with. First list is a UL, and the UL is going to include list items, or LIs. And each one of these list items opens and closes to make sure that it's its own element on the page, and then they are all nested within a list element. Okay, so here's UL, and that's an unordered list. The default bullet point is going to be a disk, and then in OL you have 3 list items here, and the default list item is going to be a numeral. And then we have a DL down here, which is more of a text-based list. So we don't have list items here. We have a DT for a definition term. And then we have a DD, that's a definition. And then we have a DL, which is a definition list. Okay. So those are the 3 that we deal with. We can style each one of these as a block level element. And so if I say UL, and I have a block level element that I'm styling, I'm going to put a margin to the left of this one of 50 pixels. And you see that it pushes that list all the way in 50 pixels. Okay. I'm going to do an OL just of that block level element, and I'm going to put a margin from the left of 25 pixels. And with this one, I'm going to put a border around the whole thing. So I'm going to put a border of 2 pixels, and I'm going to make that a solid border, and I'm going to make it orange. Okay. And then, after I've done that, I have a border around that one. And I'm going to also style my DL. And my DL is going to have a style of, let's give this one more of the box. So let's give this one a padding of 5 pixels. Let's give this one a border of 1 pixel solid blue. And let's give this one a margin of 20 pixels all around. Okay. And so that just gives us, some basic style changes that we can see on the page. Now I feel like my UL needs a little border, so I'll put a border in there too. 2 pixels, and we'll make this one dotted, and we'll make it green. 00 FF00. Okay. There we go. Okay. Check this out. All right, so we're going to go through each one of these and apply some style to each. All right, so I have a UL, and my UL has the dotted line around it, And then we have the dots, and the dots kind of occupy a space, or the list style items kind of occupy a space. And then there's the list item itself that has some properties that we can style. All right. We have list items that belong to either the UL or the OL. So we could style every list item the exact same way, but HTML really doesn't give us a nice way to do that. So let's say we wanted to change every list item, and let's just give it a color so that we can see that they're all list items, and we'll call this DD8800. Okay, and that gives us a, well, not far off from the original orange that we had before. In comparison, in fact, it looks kind of the same, which is super strange. But that means that we should just change things more dramatically. There we go. Now, see what's happening. The list item color is changing for every single one of these. So even though we placed a color on, or we didn't place a color on either of these, the list items are changing for both the UL and the OL. Which means that if I put a color on the UL, let's make this, let's use this aqua color here. Watch what happens when I do that. Nothing happens. Absolutely nothing happens. This color gets replaced by the list item. So the list item inherits, or the list item overtakes or takes precedence in the cascade over the UL because of the way that nesting works. So these are nested within the ULs, and so they're going to be the most element specific item within this space, and so therefore they're going to get the color override applied to them. All right, so rather than do this, I don't like styling ULs or OLs or LIs separately. What I tend to do is pay attention to the box model for the UL and style the box element here. All right, and so I'm going to take away this color, and I'll leave the border on here so that we can see that each one of these are in their boxes. But instead of doing that, what I'm going to use is a type of selector that allows us to select within a box, and it's this little right arrow thing. It's the greater than sign. It's the same thing that ends tags, so it's a little bit confusing moving from HTML to CSS because of that, but nonetheless, we'll kind of leave it as it is. I'm going to use this little character to say that any LI inside of a UL is going to have a particular characteristic. And so let's change our color now to a very bright red, FF0000. Okay. And then any list item within a UL should take on the color that I specified for this this item, and they do. And notice also that the list item color is going to affect the list bullet point as well. Right, so let's just be mindful of that. Now, what that also means is that we can use the same exact tactic to change the OL. And so we can do the OL, and I'll just make this a very bright green for demonstration purposes. So my OL is going to be in, it's going to be styled that way. Right. Next thing I want you to know about these is that once we have these list items separated, we can style them differently, and then we can have different characteristics to take place. Now, we try to stay logical about this, and there is a list-style type that we can use to change around the type of list style that's available or that's viewable in the viewport. So right now we have the list style type by default is going to be a disk, so we'll see no change here. Okay. We also are going to copy, comment, and put another list style in here, and we'll do this as a list style of circle. And you see the change there. This now changes to a circle in there. I'm going to copy, I'm going to comment out, and I'm going to paste. And let's see, I think there's square. So that gives us a square bullet point. And then I'll paste in one more time. Let me comment this out. And let's look at our list. What else do we have in our list? Decimals. Interesting. So check this out. A little bit of a departure. But when I put in decimal, it basically just changes this from a UL to an OL. The ordering still comes in. Everything still happens over here. But because we put decimal in there, it's going to use that as its basis for bullet points. Oh, what a strange little language this is sometimes. All right, anyway. We also have some funky ones like Armenian. We have some decimals leading zeros with discs. We have Georgian. We also have lower and uppercase alphabetical types. And then we also have list style type of none, which is super great because there's another thing I want to show you about lists that can be really useful. Okay, so I'm going to leave list style type none for an unordered list here. Okay. Now, I have this OL. And rather than go through all of the list style types here, I'm just going to change this to a lowercase alpha. And you can play around with the list of these. You can look in HTML references to see what list style type allows you to do. But this is lowercase alpha, and we can alphabetize in different ways. So one of the other things about lists is that you will have lists within lists that might occur. And so you can check on the syntax to make sure that you are nesting things properly with those. The DL I include for your reference, but I don't want to do a whole lot in terms of styling this one. I'm going to put in a DT, and I'll give this a style. So I'm going to do this a font family. I'm sorry, let's do a font size or font weight of bold. And that should do for the DT. And then for DD, I'm going to do a font style of italic. And so that gives me some formatting to work with. Notice that when we're dealing with the weight of the font, we can use bold. We can also use numeric values in here from 100 through 900. And then for the italics, it's just a straight up declaration. So font style can be italic or oblique as necessary. Okay. So that gives us some basics for how to work with different types of lists, and I hope you learned a lot. Talk to you soon.